कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजना यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजना यमुना तीरावनचारि यमुना तीरावनचारि जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अशोत शत श्री श्रीमद अभय चरणार विंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय हरे कृष्णा all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga all glories to Srila Prabhupada Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikas Swaminiti Namane Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 7, titled Knowledge of the Absolute, text 15. Okay. Namam dushkritino mudha. Namam dushkritino mudha. प्रपद्यन्ते नराधमाः प्रपद्यन्ते नराधमाः माययापहृतज्ञाना माययापहृतज्ञाना आसुरं भावमाश्रिताः आसुरं भावमाश्रिताः नमां दुष्कृतिनो मूढाः प्रपद्यन्ते नराधमाः Mayaya pahrita jnana Asuram bhavamashitaha. Please repeat. Namam dushkritino mudha prapadyante naradhamaha Mayaya pahrita jnana Asuram bhavamashitaha. Namam dushkritino mudha prapadyante naradhamaha Mayaya parhita jnana Asuram bhavamashitaha. Namam dushkritino mudha prapadyante naradhamaha Mayaya parhita jnana Asuram bhavamashitaha. Namam dushkritino mudha prapadyante naradhamaha Mayaya parhita jnana Asuram bhavamashitaha. Ladies. Namam dushkritino mudha prapadyante naradhamaha Mayaya parhita jnana Asuram bhavamashitaha. Namam dushkritino mudha prapadyante naradhamaha Mayaya parhita jnana Asuram bhavamashitaha. Okay, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Okay, so we are reading a section of the purport here. So I'm going to skip to category number 3. Right, this is the last of this section that we've been discussing over the last 2 classes. From this wonderful book, Bhagavad Gita, a very ancient book, more than 5,000 years old, containing the essence and cream of Vedic knowledge. Okay, Srila Prabhupada writes, the next class of Dushkriti is called Mayaya Pahrita Jnana, or those persons whose erudite knowledge has been nullified by the influence of the illusory material energy. They are mostly very learned fellows, great philosophers, poets, literati, scientists, etc. But the illusory energy misguides them, and therefore they disobey the Supreme Lord. There are a great number of Mayaya Pahrita Jnana at the present moment, even amongst the scholars of the Bhagavad Gita. In the Gita, in plain and simple language, it is stated that Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is none equal to or greater than him. He is mentioned as the father of Brahma, the original father of all human beings. In fact, Sri Krishna is said to be not only the father of Brahma, but also the father of all species of life. He is the root of the impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. The super soul in every living entity is his plenary portion. He is the fountainhead of everything, and everyone is advised to surrender unto his lotus feet. Despite all these clear statements, the Maya Pahrita Jnana deride the personality of the Supreme Lord and consider him merely another human being. They do not know that the blessed form of human life is designed after the eternal transcendental feature of the Supreme Lord. All the unauthorized interpretations of the Gita by the class of Maya Pahrita Jnana outside the purview of the Parampara system are so many stumbling blocks on the path of spiritual understanding. The deluded interpreters do not surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, nor do they teach others to follow this principle. 4. the last class of Dushkriti is called Asuram Bhava Mashritaha, or those of demonic principles. This class is openly atheistic. Some of them argue that the Supreme Lord can never descend upon this material world, but they are unable to give any tangible reasons as to why not. There are others who make him subordinate to the impersonal feature, although the opposite is declared in the Gita. Envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the atheist will present a number of illicit incarnations manufactured in the factory of his brain. Such persons, whose very principle of life is to decry the personality of Godhead, cannot surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Sri Yamuna Acharya Alabandharu of South India said, "O my Lord, you are unknowable to persons involved with atheistic principles, despite your uncommon qualities, features, and activities, despite your personalities being confirmed by all the revealed scriptures in the quality of goodness, and despite your being acknowledged by the famous authorities renowned for their depth of knowledge in the transcendental science and situated in the godly qualities. Therefore, 1. Grossly foolish persons, 2. The lowest of mankind, 3. The deluded speculators, and 4. The professed atheists, as above mentioned, never surrender unto the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead in spite of all scriptural and authoritative advice." I'll chant a few prayers now and then we will begin our discussion. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shriyutaf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namam Dushkriti no Mudha, Prapadyante Naradhamaha, Mayaya Parhita Jnana, Asuram Bhava Mashritaha. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. So, Srimad Bhagavad Gita is the science of devotional service, also known as Bhakti Yoga. In fact, the Bhagavad Gita is called Yoga Sutra. This is in the end of every chapter, the Bhagavad Gita is described as Yoga Sutra, because actually every single chapter title in Sanskrit ends with the word yoga. So, why is it a Yoga Sutra? Because yoga, the actual purpose of yoga, is meant to link us with the Supreme, with the Divine, with, and when I mean Supreme Divine, I mean the Supreme Source of everything, the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, from whom we have all come from. So, this is the purpose of yoga. The purpose of yoga is not simply to relieve one of anxiety, simply to help one's health, etc. Yoga, these are side effects of yoga. For instance, Srila Prabhupada himself has instructed his disciples that to take care of their health is the first priority, then sadhana. But that doesn't mean that one only takes care of one's health and doesn't perform sadhana or spiritual practices that help one elevate one's consciousness and achieve self-realization, become Krishna conscious. But good health is required. So, yoga, what people today like about yoga is they like all of the side benefits of yoga, but they forget the main part. The point is, material life is problematic because we are interested in everything, in all the side benefits, and we've forgotten the main purpose of life. That in human life, most people are interested in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Now, it's not that these activities are not required. Yoga does not say that these activities are not required. These activities are required for the upkeep of the material body that carries the spirit soul within. But the human form of life is not meant just for those four activities. In an animal form of life, the animals, they focus on performing just these four activities in different ways and shapes and forms. And they don't have riots, protests, depression. They don't have to have psychiatric treatment. They don't need big conferences to discuss this stuff. They don't need to do that. They've been doing it generation after generation because their body forms are made for that. The human form of life is an opportunity for the spirit soul to understand who he actually is, which is that the spirit soul is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. This is our constitutional position. Currently, we are in a material conditioning where we are thinking that my happiness depends on matter and everything around me. It depends on my circumstances. It depends on the amount of wealth I have. It depends on the amount of food I can get, or friends I can have, or wealth, whatever that may be. But the human form of life is an opportunity through the process of yoga to recognize that actually all of this is superficial to the spirit soul. That the spirit soul is eternal. It is moving from life form to life form, seeking that eternal happiness, which actually is found in connecting the spirit soul with the source of all the living entities and the source of all spirit and matter, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, God, Krishna, doesn't force this upon us. Why? Because the process of yoga ultimately is to come to the platform of loving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We are meant to love. But love cannot be forced. And love that is based on matter is temporary. If the love is based on bodily conceptions, if it is based on material designations. For instance, if one is determined to love other Americans but hate Russians, then that love is temporary. Because the designation America is not an eternal designation. It is a designation that was created about 350 years ago. What is it? How long? 250. 1776. It's about 200 and something years. So, but before that, there was no United States of America. And this is true for every country. There was once what was called the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East. Very powerful empire. Now it's divided into several states. And like this is going on. Therefore, if one bases, and same thing with bodily relationships, because ultimately all bodily relationships terminate at the time of death. But at the time of death, we do not cease to exist. We continue to exist. Which is why in every language, when a person dies, they don't say, he's finished. Well, that word may be used, but most of the time, he's gone, he's departed. What other words are used? He left. May he rest in peace. They keep talking as if the person still continues to exist, which is true. The spirit soul actually exists, just not in that body. It's gone somewhere else. And this is called reincarnation. This happens. Reincarnation is governed by the laws of karma, which is very complex. It's not as simple as you slap someone, you're going to get slapped tomorrow by somebody else. It's not that simple. The people oversimplify karma. Karma is extremely complex because it's reactions that are piled over several lifetimes. But the process of yoga is to ultimately become free from these material designations and material hang-ups to connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is the source of all matter and spirit, of both the material and spiritual worlds. And the way to connect with him is through the process of love, not fear. It's not fear. The process of yoga is through the process of loving. But to love someone, one has to come to the platform of surrender first. And therefore, Bhagavad Gita comes to that point. Bhagavad Gita explains to us in 700 beautiful verses the entirety of material and spiritual knowledge condensed into 700 verses, all directing us to one point: to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, in this, and when one surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, automatically all of one's material and spiritual needs are taken care. This is the guarantee that Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita. And if one is concerned about sins and past reactions, past karma, Krishna says in the 18th chapter, Krishna declares that don't worry about that, I'll take care of all of that. Why? Because how can Krishna take care of all karma? Because Krishna, for instance, one of the things that Krishna establishes in Bhagavad Gita is Name karmani limpanti, Name karma pales prihaha. That I'm not affected by karma because karma is acting under my guidance. I created the laws of karma. I created all the material laws. The material laws don't apply to me. I may act as if I am controlled by them. When Krishna appears in his incarnation, he appears in a human-like form. That's for Srila Prabhupada in this purport. He says, for instance, they say, he gives the case of the Mayaya Aparhita Jnana, the category of those people whose erudite knowledge has been nullified by the influence of illusory material energy. They say that the Maya Aparhita Jnana deride the personality of the Supreme Lord and consider him merely another human being. So they say, well, people make images of God because in human forms because they look human. But Prabhupada states here, he says that they do not know that the blessed form of human life is designed after the eternal and transcendental feature of the Lord. It's not that we are designing God according to how we look. It's that we, as the Bible also says, we are created in God's image. And the Maya Aparhita Jnanas cannot understand this because they forget the point that, well, if we created God in our image, then how did this form come to be? How did this form come? And that's when they get pretty atheistic if they don't have an answer to that. They say it all comes up by chance. It all just happened. When some amino acids, before that, some proteins were formed, and those proteins somehow decided to code themselves into RNA and DNAs, and then form single-cell living creatures who are, by the way, anybody who's studied cells know that they're some of the most complex creatures to ever exist, extremely complex, and that you can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. You take one part out of that cell, the cell stops working. Cell dies. So what came first? You know that eternal conundrum they say? What is that? The chicken come and the egg. What is that? Yeah, the chicken or the egg. Which came first? Thing is, God created both. But God can do that. Oh, you put everything on God. Yes, because the definition of God is that he can do anything. Duh. That's our English definition. Look at the dictionary. You can contest whether such a person can exist, but you can't say, oh, we're just copying out because we give everything to God. No, you don't have an explanation. You're copying or putting everything on chance. And what is chance? You can't even explain what chance is. Chance is just some random event. Wow, great. They're basically like saying you don't know anything. So, the Maya Aparita Jnanas, they come up with different, so they'll make a big study. They'll say, okay, you see all these civilizations, they did this, they did that, they'll make some big PhD thesis about all these things, all to come to a conclusion that is so it seems like they're very logical people, but their conclusion is actually really, it has no logic in it. It's a big logical fallacy. Nowadays, the popular theories are going to the fourth class of people called Asuram Bhavam Ashritaha, those of demonic principles who are openly atheistic. Nowadays, scientists claim that the universe was created by a big bang. Now, little do they teach in the schools that actually about 150 years ago, before the Big Bang theory became very prominent among scientists, well, 100 years ago actually, in the early 1900s, the most popular theory among scientists was the solid state theory. What is the solid state theory? That the universe has always been eternally existing exactly in the same way that it's existing right now. That was the popular theory amongst all cosmologists, that the universe has always existed. But then, they started understanding that there is this expansion of energy going on in the universe, and they couldn't account for that because they're like, this thing is constantly expanding. That means like right now it's bigger than what it was an hour ago, which means that an hour ago it was smaller than what it is right now, which means that in the beginning it should have all been really small. Now, funnily, the Big Bang theory, the name Big Bang wasn't coined by, I forgot this, actually the theory came up with one particular cosmologist. I can't remember his name right now. He didn't call it the Big Bang theory actually. In fact, when he proposed that theory, the other scientists ridiculed him and called him the Big Bang theory. It was a joke. The name was a joke, Big Bang. It was meant to sound like some cartoonish name, which it actually is. It was a joke. Now that's mainstream. They don't explain that. That actually the solid state cosmologists, the big think tanks of that day, thought this was a joke. That's a very interesting point to understand, that the name was actually coined as a joke. And now it's like mainstream. That's what they think it is. Again, it doesn't make any sense, because what exploded? But the openly atheistic class, they argue that the Supreme Personality of Godhead doesn't even exist, that God doesn't exist. They just think that God doesn't exist. And why is Krishna speaking about these people? It's not that because he wants to spite them ad infinitum. I want to send them to hell forever. That's why I'm going to talk about them, and I'm going to talk about them in the manner that I'm going to send all these people to burn in hell forever. No. For one who is interested in advancing in the process of devotional service, bhakti yoga, Krishna consciousness, who wants to actually achieve self-realization, because they understand that what the Bhagavad Gita says makes a lot of sense. It's what makes the most sense. Because in the Bhagavad Gita, the process of yoga is scientifically presented. The character and personality of the Supreme Lord is scientifically presented. It is not some old fart who sits in heaven throwing thunderbolts down on people who don't like him and sending them to hell because they didn't go to the right church. This is not that image of God. It's not that kind of image that is presented. It is a very scientific understanding of God. Similarly, there is a scientific understanding of karma. There is a scientific understanding of why we are spirit souls and not the material body. There is a scientific understanding of the nature of this material world. What is this material world that we interact in? Consists of the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. I can't go into that. Everything gets into a lot of detail. But Everything is scientifically presented so that we can accept Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita ultimately to surrender and worship Him. And that process of surrendering and worshipping Him is a process that is blissful. It is ecstatic. Yes, it involves overcoming our mind, which is a tough thing. And it is a painful thing. It's not easy to overcome the mind and senses. Currently, we are slave of the mind and senses. Whatever the mind tells us, we do it. Actually, my spiritual master was, giving a class about eternal kindness. And one thing he was making the point that, for instance, a child, it sees, a cleaning liquid in a bottle that's blue in color, and it wants to drink it. And why does it want to drink it? Because it wants to drink it. And for the child, it doesn't feel that there needs to be any other explanation apart from the fact that it wants to drink it. It feels completely justified that I want to do this, therefore I should be allowed to do it. Why do you need anything more of an explanation than that? This is an example of someone who's controlled by the mind and senses. The person who's controlled by the mind and senses doesn't feel that they really need to understand or analyze their actions and activities. They think that because they feel that certain way, they must do it. That's it. Now, as people become more intelligent, they use their intelligence to justify the desires of their mind and senses. But Bhagavad Gita asks us to control the mind and senses and fine-tune our intelligence according to reality that is described by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Why? Because this reality talks about the Supreme Lord who is real, God is real, we are real, we spirit souls are real, we have to understand our nature, we have to understand the material world which is real around us. It's not some simulation, some imagination, some dream that we're in. This is actual reality. Why is it real? Because certain things definitely happen. Everything is not some imagination. If I go and if we get punched in the face, we're going to feel pain. We don't need to have a big philosophical discussion about that. It's real. Certain things are real. You go drink water from a sewer, you're most likely going to fall sick. So certain things are real. Like, you go out there right now, it's like 95, it's like almost 100 real feel. It feels freaking hot. It's real. Like, it's not like some simulation or some dreaming. Oh, I don't know if I really exist. So these, foolish people come up with all these kind of ideas after, smoking something up. But Krishna is asking us to control our mind and senses with intelligence that is sharpened by hearing Bhagavad Gita. Because here reality is described. And if we mold our life according to reality, just like it is hard for a child to grow up, it is hard for a child to learn the habits that it needs to learn in order to grow up as an adult who can take care of himself or herself. But that's called growing pains, right? They use that word, growing pains, because there is pain. And that pain is good. And that pain is administered by sadhus, saints, devotees, headed by the spiritual master, who cuts our misconceptions with the sword of knowledge received from Krishna's instructions in the Bhagavad Gita. And only one who is surrendered can learn this. One who is not surrendered will not accept this. they will come up with so many excuses to avoid surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, what is the problem with that? Because they carry these kind of ideas, they ultimately cause harm in the world to themselves and others. Because they come up with all kinds of ridiculous ideas. They don't see anything wrong with their atheistic philosophy. Ultimately, if you consider that there is no actual purpose to life, there is no real meaning to life, there is no purpose to life, just be happy, eat, drink, merry, for tomorrow we shall all be dead and gone. If that is the philosophy, take it to the extreme, you don't even moral codes become debatable. Who decides what is moral, what is immoral? If happiness is ultimately the only consideration we have, which, if you take it to the extreme, it's selfish. Now some people will argue, well, we can have moral codes so that we can have a peaceful society, so we can all enjoy. But which society allows everyone to enjoy? That only that society which is based upon proper understanding of reality. Real compassion cannot begin unless one is on this platform of Krishna consciousness, whereby one can see everyone, all living entities, as spirits, spirit souls. Otherwise, if you look at the body, then somebody is always left out. At least animals are left out. The state of Louisiana just signed a 10 Commandments law, where they display the 10 Commandments. It's now law in Louisiana. It'll get challenged in the court. But they passed a law that the 10 Commandments have to be displayed in every public classroom in the state. So, the thing is, the 10 Commandments are wonderful. They're glorious. They're wonderful commandments. But they don't follow them. It's one thing about displaying them everywhere. And the first commandment is, Prabhupada was very, very insistent on this. He said, for instance, the first commandment is, thou shalt not kill. Then why are you eating meat? They changed that to, thou shalt not murder. Well, why do you eat meat then? Why eat meat? Where is compassion? Where is justice for all the poor chickens, the goats, the cows? Where's compassion for them? Why are they left out? They have feelings. They also have emotions. They also have relationships. No. Only humans have souls. They don't have souls. This is religious principle. Some nonsense. What makes you have a soul and them not them? Seems that you are the one who's soulless because you're so selfish. And you come up with these kind of ideas. So, principles that are not based on reality or half-hearted acceptance, as we can see here, these different classes of people, they don't surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They cannot accept the process of devotional service or yoga that is described in the Bhagavad Gita. And because of that, they cause a lot of harm in the world. There's so much. Nobody talks about this. Everybody wants climate change. Everybody wants to control climate change. Well, maybe not everyone, but at least a lot of people in the world want to control climate change. And there's whole conferences about, I was just reading something really. Okay, yeah. So there was an article in the news. It was like some lake in California has reached its highest peak of water, and the water level has reached the highest peak since 2010. So there was a lot of rain last year and a lot of rain in the beginning of the year in the snow-capped mountains, and so all the and the water is, and the lake is basically 4 feet short of becoming full. So they're like, this is wonderful. But all the, the geologists and the scientists, they're all warning, let's not get comfy. We got to keep the water levels. We have to understand that we have to fight climate change. And then one of the scientists was quoted saying, but thankfully, we live in California where we have the highest number of electrical vehicles in the country. More than Florida. Well, anyways, first off, it's, while you don't see the pollution in electrical vehicles, then disclaimer, I'm not vouching for gasoline vehicles, but the point is that EVs, you require a lot of rare earth minerals, which causes a lot of environmental destruction in another form. I don't want to talk about that. What they also don't want to talk about, which is the biggest elephant in the room, is that the largest emissions of greenhouse gases in the world is the meat industry. Nobody wants to talk about that. Cut that. We have more than enough food for everyone, every single person. There will not be a hungry person left in this world. And after feeding everyone more than what they could even eat, we would still have a lot left. You wouldn't have forests destroyed because you don't need so much land. You don't need that much land. Most of farming, most of the grains that are produced go in feeding livestock. And to maintain this livestock, so much pollution is created, which leads to being the largest contributor of greenhouse gas emissions. But nowhere, not even in the United Nations, will they speak about this. While they talk about curbing climate change, in the very conference they will eat meat. That is how hypocritical they tend to be. And hypocrites will ultimately cause problems in this world because they want to live, they don't want to accept reality. They want to create a reality, and in order to create that reality, they will go to any extreme to force that reality upon this world. In the form of education, in the form of activities like mining or polluting, all the natural resources, exploiting people, coming up with different governmental systems that are just different forms of oppression, all to force their imagined reality on this world. And therefore, Krishna classifies these people as demons. So, therefore, these kind of people never surrender unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in spite of all scriptural and authoritative advice. So, what are we drawing from this class? What we draw from this class is that we should be sincere enough to understand, to read Bhagavad Gita, to understand the instructions that are found here, and to implement them in our life. To implement them in our life is very simple. We need to chant the holy name of Krishna, which is right here. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All knowledge and all bliss is contained within these 32 syllables of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. These nectarian words. This process of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and hearing the chanting leads to self-realization. And we will become attentive in our chanting of Hare Krishna if we read Srila Prabhupada's books regularly and we associate with devotees. That's why we have this Sangha over here. This is very, very important to come into Sadhu Sangha. Because Sadhu Sangha, Shastra is glorified. Just by, seeing a sadhu, just by, offering obeisances to a sadhu, so many of one's sinful reactions are liberated. Why this glorification? Because a sadhu brings us closer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead who eradicates our sins through the process of yoga, specifically Krishna consciousness. So this is all very scientifically understood. So associating with devotees is extremely important. And as a treat for associating with devotees? What do you get? When you are with devotees, never, ever are you not fed. You get fed nice, sumptuous prasadam. Krishna treats us for coming into the association of devotees. Every time you come to the association of devotees, devotees ask you, have you taken prasadam? Here's something to eat. Here's something to eat. Most to the extent where one has to start refusing. I've eaten too much. Enough, enough, enough. I can't eat more. This is the wonderful, blissful process of Krishna consciousness. But still, if we don't take it up, we fall into these four categories. One of these four categories is influencing us. That's the only reason why we won't surrender. And even after we come to Krishna consciousness, any and all doubts can be classified into these four categories, if you deeply understand. And this is why Bhagavad Gita is such a scientific book. It's like, oh, Prabhuji, you're being a Muda. You're being a Naradhama. You're talking like a Maya, Pahrita Jnana. These are heavy words in Sanskrit. And all the description is here. And then we can analyze, well, really, is it like that? But one has to be sincere. But by being sincere, there is bliss awaiting us. Eternal life of bliss and knowledge. And it is not some theory that will happen later, only after we cross 7 heavens or whatever like that. No. One can experience it in this lifetime. One can experience bliss in the association of devotees. Just come and participate. Like for instance, right, we at the, there's signs out there. There's a festival coming up this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's called a Shravanam Kirtanam camp. It's a festival of hearing and chanting. We hear, chant, sing, dance, take prasadam, and associate with devotees who are all wonderful people. This is Krishna consciousness. This is the best form of yoga, because it's love in practice. It's love not based on material designations, but it's love based on us being spirit soul servants of Krishna, associating and coming together to surrender and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Inspire each other to do so under the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. And the festival is free. It's free. How much better can we make this? We were sitting here making the menu. On 3 days the lunch, how many items? Breakfast is like 6 items. 5 items, 6 items. Well, that's kind of like how it is every breakfast, isn't it? 10 items 11 items for 3 days lunch, and then there's dinner too. And it's all free. We do like donations, by the way. So, you can give that. You can be very generous with that. But the point is, again, why donations? Because we're trying our best to make this available for everyone. And that there shouldn't be any financial bar on someone coming and practicing Krishna consciousness. So, what is the problem? Why can't we come and participate? Why can't we come and surrender to Krishna? Why can we not do it? Srila Prabhupada say, what is the difficulty? What is the difficulty? Srila Prabhupada would say. Why would he say that? Because he would make it sound like, what is the difficulty? Where is the difficulty? It's all in your head. So please come next Sunday, especially Sunday, we begin our program at 10:30 in the morning, and it ends by lunch is served at 2 o'clock, and it's a really blissful. There's actually a fire yagya also happening as part of the initiation ceremony. Some fortunate souls are going to be taking shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, and they'll be receiving spiritual names and beads, and then there'll be a fire yagya. We're not going to throw people into it, but you'll see a Vedic fire sacrifice. All vegetarian only. No animals, no human beings. And then after that is, there's a really fantastic feast. But in all honesty, you should come for all 3 days. What are you doing? Come on. Purpose of life is to be happy. Here's free happiness. Grab it with 2 hands. Then if you grab this with 2 hands, then, Krishna may bless us with a body with 4. 4 hands. That's devotees in the spiritual world have 4 hands. Vaikuntavasis. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? The mic? Pass around. Oh, you got it. Any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. You were mentioning about different aspects of modern society and how artificial it is, and how by trying to create so many alternatives in society and civilization, we actually create so many more
problems. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was talking with Kalki Prabhu and Avadhuta Chandra Prabhu about how if we just live simply and according to the way people have for so many years, it's
millennia.
Right. Everything actually works out with all these like unnecessary problems. Like everything breaks down, everything decomposes, everything just naturally grows in your own backyard. You don't have to manufacture and create so many things with other side effects. And it made me think, like, in the medical field and the medical world, like they have so many health problems and health considerations, and often the solution that they give is they just give someone one pill. But that pill also has 2 or 3
You just mask the problem, and then it acts like it doesn't exist.
And then for that pill, it has 2 or 3 side effects.
Oh, you're feeling depressed.
To prescribe another one.
Here's a pill that will chemically inject something into you to create a feeling of happiness. Doesn't really solve any of your problems in life. But anyways, you can feel little happy at that point of time. Doesn't really solve the problem.
And then one thing also that I saw was in the news in California, they were saying that they have to start charging their electric cars with generators because they don't have like the electrical grid to
support it.
So they have to use gas generators.
Yeah. I mean, it's silly. It's really silly. Where are you getting all your power from? Oh, they say now we'll establish nuclear reactors. Yeah. There are problems with that also. Anyways, what I mentioned this in the previous class. It was a funny thing I discovered. I didn't really know that, but that the argument that science and the automobile industry specifically, with their ads, were making to encourage people in the early 1900s to shift from horse carriages to automobile vehicles, was because it's clean. Why is it clean? Because you don't have to deal with horse poop. This horse, it goes around pooping everywhere, all around the street, and it stinks so horrible. And then you have to have someone going and gathering all that poop and putting it in a cart, and then that cart stinks as it goes along the street. It's so smelly, nasty, ugly. But look at this clean car. So clean. And now they claim that automobile isn't clean anymore. Now they need something else. The same thing. But they never realized that they were going to have this kind of a problem. They never thought about it. And they won't think. So this will also lead to another problem. Because they don't accept reality. Just the fact that, they won't discuss about the meat industry being the greatest contributor of greenhouse gas emissions. They won't discuss that. Shows that they are not interested in accepting reality. They don't want to discuss reality. They want to have some patchwork solution. It doesn't work. What happens is ultimately the laws of material nature catch up to them and smash them. They get smashed by the laws of material nature because they can never actually completely overcome it. So, anything else? Any other questions or comments? Yes, Mataji. Oh, you have something? Mataji, yes.
You were making the point about to love that one has to come to a point of surrender, and it almost seems like in order to get to that point, there's like some sort of risk taking that comes to that. Like someone who comes to Krishna consciousness and has never known God as Krishna before, and then like in order to love him, they're being called to like surrender or trust him. You know, like how does one come to a point of actually being willing to do that?
Good question. There is no risk involved if one understands that all of one's needs are actually being provided by Krishna. That's why there's a point that even without surrendering to Krishna, such as the animals, all their needs are being provided. There's a freeze, there's a heat wave. So there's a heat wave right now. But the pigeons aren't dying. What about the pigeons? They're living out there. How are they surviving? So in this way you can see, actually when you actually see an elephant is when you realize how big this creature is and how much it eats and how much water it drinks. An elephant requires, each elephant requires about 20, I think that's an underestimation. I don't remember. Somebody could Google. But an elephant requires, you want to look that up? An elephant, how many pounds or kilograms of food does it require a day to survive? Some crazy number. No, can't find it? Sorry? 375 pounds. Oh, whoa, that's a big underestimation I did. 300, and it requires that much pounds of food a day? 375 pounds of food a day. That's practically, that's over twice our body weight, for most of us. 375 pounds of food a day, and guess what? They roam in herds. Right? They roam in packs. They roam in herds of like 10, 12. How are they getting all the water and food that they need to eat to survive? Krishna is providing. He provides. And they're not actively surrendering, but the point is they act according to their constitutional position. That in the animal form of life, they act according to the instinct, that they don't have that freedom, and they're provided. Humans have instinct, but they have choice with which they can choose how they want to behave. And because humans don't understand their purpose of life, they're meant to understand the purpose of life. When they understand the purpose of life and they act according to their form that they are in, automatically, just like all the animals, their needs also will be provided for. But they need to do that. The human form of life, you need to do that. Then your needs are taken care. So if one understands that, then one understands there's not a risk. In fact, there's a risk by not surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because you're fending for yourself. So then, surrender becomes the intelligent thing to do, and the best thing to do. So it's not risk anymore. That clarify? Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Okay. All right. Thank you very much for coming, and we hope to see you all this weekend, beginning Friday. And if not, at least try to come for a longer period of time on Sunday. And until that point of time, you're welcome to come. We have morning programs every day here at the temple. Beginning at 4:30. If you really want to experience bliss, come here at 4:30.